What's up, guys? Welcome back to the ranch. All right, ranchers, we're here in the last weekend of April, right on the edge of my woods in front of my old giant sugar maples that were here well before me. And we're going to plant a pear tree. So it is that time of year. It is just getting into spring here in upstate New York, where we can count on the frosts to kind of be behind us. We may get one or two additional frosts, but it should not freeze and it should not really stunt the growth of these soft mass or fruit-bearing or pear trees, because that's what they are. They're considered soft mass. I've picked a spot here right at the edge of my woods. It's kind of close to the house. We're only about 50 yards off the house, but I like putting a little bit of an attraction on the edge of the woods that tend to want to bring the deer down from the mountaintop in the later part of the night to come check out my fruit and apple trees, because I have an apple tree behind the camera as well. And the idea for me is to pull the deer down from the mountain as the night gets closer to sunset. I want them to be working their way down to maybe hit my field or orchard and get something to eat. And I try to hunt them behind this line of food that I have here. Even over my corner of this shoulder, you could see the green lush. That's one of my food plots. That's like a night, same idea, attracting deer to come there right at dark. Whereas I get behind that up into the woods and try to hunt them coming down. Also, I'm putting a pear tree here because I hope to grow some Kiefer pears and get to enjoy some myself and not have to trek all the way up into the mountain to get them. Another reason why I'm picking this spot is you got to think of sunlight. So this is right at the edge of my southeast facing slopes here. So this, as you can see, I'm a little bit in the shadow now, but the sun is right there in April, and in May it would be already over the top of this tree, and it's going to set way behind the camera over that way. So this area is going to get a lot of good sun, because fruit-bearing trees require sun, and they're going to require not a lot of competition around them. So we don't have any other trees reaching and really crowding them out. So let's talk about actually planting a tree and how that process goes. We talked about hunting and why we're putting this here for the deer and why we pick this spot. Some other good spots, if you wanted to, you can't plant a food plot because you have a lot of wood lots and you can't get machinery in there. You can pick a spot and cut some trees out and put a group of fruit trees together in the woods, and they will grow in there as long as you cut out that canopy competition to let the light on them. So that's another idea of where you can plant some apple trees. Another thing when planting for deer, if you decide to plant apple trees that deer, you want to plant in groups of 3. And by that I mean either 2 of the same species and 1 odd species, like 2 crab apples and 1 apple, your favorite apple, your Fuji apples or your Gala apple, because they need to pollinate each other. Some apple varieties will pollinate each other, or pollinate themselves, I should say, so you wouldn't have to do that. But generally, as a rule, you want to plant 3 fruit trees at a time, because the odds are maybe 1 won't survive, and at least you have 2 of them helping pollinate each other. This Kiefer pear is self-pollinating, like I just described, so this doesn't need another pear tree to pollinate it to make for pears. Could that help it? Sure, of course. But I also have, like I said, the apple tree behind the camera. So when the pollinators are out, the bees, the butterflies, the insects pulling pollen, it will help pollinate the leaves on this tree and vice versa for that tree. So I'm a little bit in the fruit area. Also behind the camera here at about another 30 yards in that direction, which you can't see, I have a Chinese chestnut tree that's growing there. It was actually sent to me in error. I ordered American Dunstan chestnut trees and they sent me 1 Chinese chestnut, so I just stuck it up in there. I mean, I know some of you purists would be like, get rid of it, it's not native, but you know what? Deer are gonna eat those chestnuts on it anyway, so I'm fine with that. All right, let's talk about what we have going on here now. So the key to any good planting video is to have the hole already dug before you start the video, so you guys don't have to watch me dig it. What we try to do in this hole is we make the hole double the size of the pot, and you want to go double as deep. I like to do that up here because you want to make sure you pull out a lot of the rocks and stones and the stuff that could hinder the roots from growing and expanding. And that's why you want to go double down, double the depth. I mean, when I say double down, this way it's a soft, rock-free bottom below the tree you're putting in. So you clear out double the size and double the depth. Then you want to backfill a little bit. Pack down gently and backfill and chop up the dirt. This way it's nice and loose. And you know it is free from hard rocks, free from, a packed bottom. And then you can lightly tamp it down, which is going to allow for the roots to infiltrate. So let's take a look at this fruit tree, this pear tree. Again, it's of the Kiefer variety. I could show you a link to that and where I got that in the description of the video. In fact, I'll include in the link of the description all the stuff I'm using here. If you decide to get it that way, it's great for my channel. I have here in the background of the shot some garden soil and some mulch. And I know what you're saying, should you have some like peat moss or something to put in the hole? You don't need that with apple trees or pear trees or fruit trees. You want to use the ground that you have immediately, especially if you know the soil's in generally fair health. I mean, if you have a total sand rocky soil, you may want to add some peat moss and mulch in there. I have this contrary to what I'm saying because I had to pull out a lot of rocks and I'm not going to have enough dirt to backfill with what was here already. So let's go over here. This is my pot and we're going to check so you can see it's about double as wide and it was double as deep, but I already backfilled a little bit and you could see the edge of the ground would come over the top of this tree. That is not what you want. So in the front, because I'm on a little bit of an angle, it's much better, but in general, I'm going to mound up. I want this to stick up slightly out of the ground because what's going to happen is we chopped up all the soil on the bottom in that hole and eventually it's going to settle and compact with the roots of this new ball and it will get to probably ground level, which is what we don't want. You want the base of this tree, which breathes air. You want that slightly above ground level as opposed to slightly below ground level. Below is bad. Plus, think if you come back in every year and you remulch and weed, you're going to end up backfilling up higher anyway every year. So it's better to have the tree slightly above the ground so it can breathe from the base of the tree, the oxygen. So this is a little too deep for my taste. So we're going to backfill this a little bit. Just be mindful you don't put any more rocks back in there. So that was a little bit of a backfill. I'm going to rip open this bag right now and throw a little bit of this garden soil in there. Again, just to have enough dirt and material in there to know I have enough to backfill. And if you do something like this, just mix this all up. Chop it up, mix it up, just so you don't have the clumps. You don't have pure potting soil. You don't have air pockets in there. You want it nice and loose, and we're gonna let this self-pack. You'll feel and hear the rocks if there are any, and just reach down and pull them out. Because those rocks will prevent the roots from expanding into your hole. All right, so I'm liking the way that looks and feels. And again, I'm just chopping up all the clumps and trying to smooth it out a bit. Then let's test and see how that's looking. Still, I need to come up. The ground level's here. I'm like just at ground level. I don't like that. I want to come up some. Spend a little bit of time when you're putting these trees on your deer land on the front end like I'm doing, because you're not going to be here to really take care of them if they get into some sort of trouble. So you want to spend the time and get these going, because once they take, if you get this tree to survive this whole first summer, survive through its first winter, which is the easy part. If you've made it through the summer, odds are you're going to make it through the winter, especially if you're planting a variety that is of your zone. And here in the United States, most apple trees can grow anywhere. Pears are even hardier than apples, so you'll be all right. And if you make it through that winter, which you should if you made it going into fall, and it springs and grows in the next spring, you are set. You could pretty much count on this tree, as long as it doesn't get disease, to make it for you. All right. Let's check that now. Oh yeah, see, I like that. We're gonna end up coming right to just above ground level here, and then plenty over here. We're gonna make a mound in the front. So I'm really excited about that. I know what you're saying, you just filled in that hole. I know, but I gotta make a little bit of a front spot here for the tree to get into. So I'm gonna just do all this, break all my clumps up. Start building a nice hole for that to go in. A nice front for that to sit on. All right. Let's see what that looks like. All right, I like that. I like that a lot. All righty. So now we're gonna put the tree in the ground. Before we do, I'm going to use some Biotone plant starter. I'll show you this. This is the organic Biotone plant starter. This is great stuff. You don't need to put a lot, and you put it at the bottom, at the base. I usually just shake a little bit in, mix it in. And what that's going to do is that's going to entice the new roots to grow down and check out that starter in the bottom of the hole. Let's do this. Mix a little dirt over that. I like the way that looks. Let's see, I'm going to switch sides and get out of the sun a little bit for you guys. I think that'll be better. We're going to just pull this gently out of the pot. Try not to disturb too much of the integrity of the original ball. We'll pour that soil right in there, because if it's going to have fertilizer from the farm right in there. And then let me show you what this looks like up close. So you see all the roots and little bit. That's going to be great to go right into the ground and start spreading this tree out. There we go. Now let's backfill. I'm just pulling everything that I dug out right back in. And you can see the ball is going to end up above the ground level, which is what I said we want, because it will settle as this hole comes to settle down in the ground. That's really nice. Another good tip would be to use weed matting before you leave. That'll hold some weeds away from the base of the tree and grasses. All that stuff tends to fight the tree for moisture, and you want your tree in at least the first summer to do well, that it does not have too much competition from the grasses and gets the moisture and food, water it requires. Now you could see the ball sticking up out of the ground, like probably 2-3 fingers, just sort of like my scotch, 3 fingers worth, and that's perfect because we're going to mulch right over that. And you want to just gently pack it in because it's going to kind of pack on its own. And we're also going to water it in, which will help get some of the air pockets out of this tree to begin with. There we go. Let me take you down for a closer look at what this looks like. So diving in, you can see there's the background there, and it comes up slightly. And down in the front, we have plenty of room. So, I mean, that's plenty of bump sticking out that gives the earth a little bit of chance to settle in and maybe bring that down slightly. But that's all there is to it. All right, your tree's in the ground, it's planted, it was given a little bit of light root starter fertilizer, not on the immediate ball as to burn the roots, but just to entice them to go down, dig in the ground, and start growing. Is that it? No. You want to now cover this with a weed matting, which I don't have, or mulch, or preferably both, just because you want to keep that competition off the bottom of that tree. The mulch particularly will hold moisture on the soil to prevent it from drying out. So we're going to put a nice round circle, which will also, this mulch wood chip, whatever you call it, will break down and turn into soil itself. So I'm just going to make a nice ring right around our new tree. A great way to start it off. Again, we're trying to get this tree to survive its first full year. All right. So that's some Scott's mulch there. Next thing is tree just like this is going to get hit by deer, which could be very bad. Either A, they're going to eat it right down to the ground because they'll eat anything that's about as thick as a pinky, and we're just over that. So I mean, maybe it is safe, but they're going to eat all this up top, and your tree's never going to get a chance to establish and grow. So a couple of things we could do for that. One, which I'm a big, strong believer in, are these tree tubes. If you haven't seen my video on tree tubes, I can include a link to those. They come in different sizes. This was a tall one. I cut it down to size because I want it to come right below the top of these branches that come off here. And we're going to just slide this over. I'm going to leave the stick that came in this tree over the winter because I want it to hold the tree from wobbling back and forth as much as possible, because that'll walk it out of the ground, and that's bad. So you want to leave the little stick there, at least for the first year. Being that the bottom is very tight, I'm looking at it, I'm going to cut that one off to allow for the water flow to go up the tree into the top of the branches. So that'll give that some breathing room there. But I am leaving the top 3 on here. How does this tree tube work? We're going to gently feed it over the top of this tree. So you want to bring all your branches in of your new tree without breaking them like I just did, and try to feed it in. Or in this case, it's not going to work out because the tree is too large. It's too big already. So these tree tubes can be cut. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut the tree tube to open it up and put it around the tree base. These tree tubes are reusable and are great, but generally they're going to spend their whole life on this tree, because until the tree gets big enough that I could just remove this tube, I'm going to leave it on here the entire life of this tree. So I split the tube, which is fine, because the idea is we're trying to keep the deer and rodents off this tree. We're going to wiggle it into the bottom, go right around. Put my zip ties back in here. We feed that down. We run a stake right into the ground, right through these zip ties, and pull it tight, and you leave enough room in there. It doesn't have to be tight around the trunk. You want to like leave the integrity of the tube the way it was. I have it slightly overlapped here. This way I cut it, and the overlap protects so no mice could get in there. Because what will happen is in the winter, the mice will get in there and eat your tree at the base because it's sweet, it's a fruit tree, and kill your tree from the bottom. It's terrible. The other thing this protects is it eliminates the deer wanting to rub on the tree, because if they do that and rip the bark off, that'll kill the tree as well. And I'm a believer that you need to cage this in with a little bit of chicken wire cage and a stake to further prevent the deer from getting in here and aggravating the bottom. It'll also keep some of the smaller critters from the base of the tree as well. All right, so I'm feeding the piece of rebar or garden stake like I have here into the ground until it's really snug, like that. And now we're just gonna pull the zip ties tight that are on the tree tubes. Tree tubes generally come with zip ties that are reusable. And just pull it tight. And that's going to hold the tree from swaying back and forth a bit. The tube is going to keep the tree warm in the colder days. Going to hold moisture against the tree in the hotter days and act like a little greenhouse, as well as keeping the deer and pests off the tree. This, they say, increases the growth rate by about 200% on your tree. So they're really worth investing the extra $10 to get a couple of these and put them around your trees. Especially if you're only planting a couple of trees. Like I said, 3 trees at a time for fruit trees is a good number. Get these for $10, put them around your trees, and just give them an extra boost of growth and protection. This is what these look like up close. Stake, the tube, zip tie, all the way to the ground, these holes for air ventilation, all the way into the ground. And that'll stay on that tree until it's as thick as the top of the tree. So I know that was a very long form video about planting trees. I wanted it to be that way because I didn't want to miss anything out. Now you could stop there and have a fairly protected tree. I recommend putting cages around the tree, which is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to show you in this video how to cage a tree. I just wanted to explain how and why we were planting this for deer, and I think we've come far enough. So that's how you would plant a fruit tree, an apple tree, a pear tree like this one, maybe cherry plums if you were doing something like that, pawpaws. All those trees for deer are planted just like this. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm gonna put a cage around this thing. So I did the fast motion thing, making the cage. It's all set. The deer will be able to stay off this now. They can still access some of the top, but this should be able to get past the browse line. Deer tend to not eat above your shoulder height. So this summer, this should jump above that. It's amazing how they leave stuff alone on their browse line above your shoulder. So that's really where you aim to get these trees above. The last step, now all you need to do is water this in. This could be a tricky step, especially if you're trying to do that in the middle of the woods fruit tree planting. How are you going to get water there to water these trees in? You might need like a sprayer for the back of your ATV or the back of your UTV that can, get that water out to the trees to water them. This, again, is not something you'd want to or have to do all summer long, but definitely when you first plant these trees, you want to water them in, and you want to give them about 2 spackle buckets full worth of water slowly. You don't want to just dump and splash it. Slowly put it in. You want it to seep into that hole and help pack in all the soil that you loosened up slowly and get the air pockets out. If you had a drought in the summer and it's your first year with some trees, you'd want to go back in if you could and soak them like this again at least every couple of weeks. If it's drought season and you're not seeing any rain for 2 weeks, you better think about saving your new apple trees or pear trees or fruit trees or whatever tree you're planting. I also, because this is on a slant, I restacked some of the rocks here in the front to just hold as like a retaining wall some of the material I put at the front of this tree. Now I'm just watering this in nice and slowly. Really getting that down in there. You can see I have a secondary type bucket or watering can here. And I really want to saturate this. So this tree came in a pot, is a potted tree. Some of your trees will be called bare root trees, and that means they'll just come and the top of the tree will look like the bottom of the tree, but the bottom of the tree is your roots. That's why they're bare roots, like they have no soil on them. Those trees are even harder to establish. They do grow better once they get going because their roots can take the shape of the ground more naturally. When you use a ball or potted tree like this, the roots tend to grow more circular and they don't always get out of that shape, which isn't always the best for a tree. But the tree is more likely to survive planting. So there's that to consider too when buying trees. A lot of the times I find bare root trees are cheaper because it's easier for them to cultivate and they don't have to put them in pots and give you material. Just a little bit at a time. See, I have some runoff happening here because I went a little too hard, and that's wasteful. So the water is not getting into the ground, so I'm stopping for a second. Come from this way. There we go. So do a second round of this, nice and slow. Even if you want to take 5 minutes to let it seep into the ground before you do the second one. And that's it, tree in the ground. I hope this video helped you planting trees and planting apple trees, planting fruit trees, planting whatever type of tree you'd like for your deer, because it all kind of comes out to be the same as this. I hope that helped you, give you some information and show you like a very step-by-step detailed long form video. All right guys, thanks for watching.